Okay. The eastbound platform is complete. Construction will continue on the westbound platform through 2022. Empire State Development Corporation held a hearing on its revised draft environmental impact statement for the Penn Station area redevelopment project and general project plan. Last night on the potential expansion plans for Penn Station, Lisa testified that the issue is not whether we want to see the improvements to Penn Station, we certainly do. The issue is how to fund these improvements. Given the generous potential for federal funding, we advocate for seeking those alternative funding sources and not tying up the important transit projects in a myriad of controversial components that could possibly postpone Penn Station improvements. Translated is, we don't really want to see the big skyscrapers, just transit portion of it. A minute and a half out of the testimony. There you go. Next week, the board will vote on various pilot programs for new ticket types to implement when peak fares will go back into effect next year. While we don't have any specific details at this time, we are hopeful that the ticket types we've been advocating for will be moved forward. And last week, a judge moved to break the impasse of the threatening the third track project and ordered Garden City to issue the permits necessary to allow the MTA to proceed. Garden City had threatened to appeal, but at this point, it doesn't appear that they have, and the project is going to proceed on schedule. We're going to continue to monitor the situation, and if necessary, we will write a letter of support on behalf of the MTA to keep this critical project moving in the right direction. That's about it. The OIRR portion of it, I'll defer most of the PCAC stuff to Lisa's Executive Director's Report. So we'll move down to Andrew, New York City Transit Riders.
Oh, okay. Let me take this thing off. So, everybody has experienced the lag in service, the extra platform time, while the hiring freeze and COVID and other problems reduce the amount of bus operators and subway train operators.
Please mute yourself.
Well, first tell us who you are.
Lisa, just read it. And Barry, it's that 027 number.
Anyway, so transit has taken steps.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll do it. No. If it does it again, I'll fix it again and fix it.
All right. Sorry about that. So in order to deal with the shortage, the staff shortage, extra training and a sped up process of training has taken place. And if you notice now, if you look at service levels on various transit apps and the official transit app, you'll notice that you'll see less notices that we're running as much service as we can with the crews we have available, which is a good sign. I do notice there are still a couple of lines where there is undeniably a much longer wait than there should be, but others have come back to normal, and I'm assuming they will all come back to normal as the training process and the new operators get put into service, so that's great. Ridership continues to grow. We've had some great days. For some reason, they frequently take place.
Excuse me, Randy and Jess?
I'm sorry, what?
You're not going to be able to record. We're going to get the background from your conversation.
And that's private?
For some reason, Thursdays appear to be a very high ridership day. Some of the highest days, ridership levels recorded have been on Thursdays. Maybe because people are taking Friday off, they're only coming in 3 days a week, I don't know. But Thursday seems to be very high, and we've hit some 5.5 million riders between bus, subway, and Staten Island Railway, which is a good sign. That's much higher than the McKinsey forecast predicted we would be. We hope that trend continues. There have been some very highly publicized crimes taking place, which are horrific and which should not be taking place. And that has probably stunted some of the growth. People are now being interviewed and saying they don't feel safe. There are more police in the system. I have noticed them. I have noticed they're being dispersed in a different way than they originally were. I still maintain they should be at the turnstiles because people that are committing crimes are likely not paying the fares, but it gives riders some comfort to see them on the platforms and in stairways. And, I think you can't have enough, as many riders who are being interviewed are saying. So I think as more riders return, crime will continue to sink. That's usually the way things happen. For anybody that doesn't know, about maybe 2 years ago when Andy Byford was still, or whenever he was still here, the community of Brooklyn Heights was treated to a public forum sponsored by Assemblymember Joanne Simon and others at the St. Francis College in Brooklyn Heights to speak about how replacement and or repair, but likely replacement, and now we know it is replacement, of the 3 elevators at the Clark Street station would be treated. Many of the folks in the audience were very in favor of not a complete shutdown, of having them replaced sequentially so that the station would remain open and the businesses within Clark Street Station could remain in business. Ultimately, as everybody now knows, that is not what is being done. All 3 elevators have been taken out of service. The station is now closed to number 2 and 3 trains until next April, and all the elevators will be replaced at the same time. So let's not be confused. This does not mean the station will be made accessible. The elevators still will not be going down to the platform level. They're going to the mezzanine level from the street. All stations, in Brooklyn Heights that are so close to the tunnels under the river are very deep, and High Street, of course, has a humongous escalator, not an elevator, but the others have elevators, and these elevators are really the oldest, and they have to be replaced. So I don't know I hope something's being done for the businesses that occupied Clark Street Station. There was newsstand, shoe repair, coffee place. There was a bunch of places, at least 4 businesses in the station. Maybe so. And I hope special arrangements were made that they can come back in April when the station reopens. But we will see. Buses have long been a stepchild, but there are many bus initiatives going on now to speed bus service, better enforcement of bus lanes on the street, cameras on the front in buses and as well as in the street to record license plates of vehicles. I'm told that it's a pretty hefty fine, and most people who have done it once and been caught do not do it again. That's a great sign. We are also doing more transit signal prioritization, so buses can change the light from red to green and continue on their way. And I understand that the incoming mayor is also going to be looking at ways to make buses more reliable and faster, because not everybody is lucky enough to live in an area that has subways, and buses are serving the entire 5 boroughs, and we have to make them more, accessible and more, attractive to riders, because sometimes they are not. They really get stuck. And sometimes it's city vehicles like a fire truck, or it could be a UPS or a Federal Express truck that are sitting right in the bus-only lanes and blocking the buses. So we're happy that buses are starting to take an acting chair. Lieber has also mentioned at a press conference the other day, he's been a long-time bus rider, and he wants to see them made better. So I'm sure that will happen. Lastly, Omni will be in full throes in 2022. All ticket types are likely to be available. Reduced fares will be available. Weeklies, and of course, fare capping is likely to be what is going to happen, which means once you've bought a certain number of trips for a period of time, if you used up those trips prior to the expiration date, all trips up to the ones you've used are free. That will make riders want to use the system in a more discretionary manner, and this means that if you want the best deal, you don't have to buy a monthly right up front, so you don't have to put that huge amount of money up front right at the beginning. So Omni is going to really be the great equalizer for all users of the transit system, and we can't wait for that to happen.
So Andrew, when you said we'll be in full throes in 2022, you mean on subways, buses, and stuff?
Yes, not on commuter rail at that point. It's another year away. Hopefully that can be sped up somehow, but it's not scheduled. until 2023. And I'm sure everybody would love to see that. Omni will also add in the all-door bus boarding pilot that will be done. We don't want to see massive fare evasion. We already see that on a daily basis. I think, with all-door boarding and the Omni card, initialized, a bus operator will know or will set off a tone if somebody comes on and does not tap. So we're hopeful that that's the way it's gonna be, because, we want as many, paying riders as we can get. We don't wanna lurch from, crisis to crisis like we do every few years, like we're gonna have to cut service, we're gonna have to raise fares because we have this soaring deficit. We need our riders to pay their fare, and we need more riders. And some fare incentives are coming next year, which we think will even broaden the appeal of the, transit system to everybody. So I'll stop there, Jerry.
Any questions for Andrew?
Yeah, just to add one thing regarding the, Omni, the reduced fare is still being tested. They're up now to the next phase. Right now, I know that we can energize it at stores, because I did test it at 3 stores. And the main thing is if you need to get the full Omni cards, they're also available at stores between CVS, Walgreens, and check cashing places. Just remind everyone, it is a $5 charge to, that and whatever amount you put on for the full fare. It does work. I have seen a lot of people using it, but I see a lot of people going to stores or the check cashing place to energize the card. But once you recharge it again, make sure you let them scan it. It goes faster, it goes quicker.
And $5 sounds like a lot compared to the cost of a MetroCard, but it will not expire like the MetroCard Stripe does, so you don't have to keep replacing it.
It's the cheapest it's the cheapest one of a prepaid credit card, because they charge $10 to $20. This is the most cheapest ever I've seen.
Sorry, it's one, other systems, you get that money back when you use the card, so hopefully that will be
I agree with
something that next year does.
Yes, and actually, I'm glad.
I don't think that we should justify the $5,
No.
fee. I think that we should push to have that, paid back.
No doubt.
What authority?
So it is MetroCard, but in other systems, $5, in other systems is given back to the riders once they start, once they load the card, start using it.
I did an air train, $5 for the air train, I didn't get that back.
That's the MetroCard, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Okay, we've reached a quorum, so let's just backtrack and get the approval of the agenda and the minutes.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried, and the minutes? Anybody see any corrections needed on the minutes?
Jerry, I just like to compliment the minutes, because I read the minutes a lot, and I do want to say, because we have new staff here, and I apologize, I should take off my mask when I speak. I really like the way it's detailed between here and to watch the video, so I do want to put a compliment on the minutes as well, for duty notice.
The minutes accept your compliment, Jerry.
Thank you, Andrew. But I just,
Do you have the proxy to speak for the minutes?
Yes, he is.
Larry, I think you had one.
I don't know if I was there or not, just leave it, it doesn't matter, it's irrelevant.
Andrew, before we vote, you're the ultimate proofreader.
I did not have the chance to read all of this, to be quite honest. I had a
Okay,
4-hour community board meeting, but,
that'll do it to you.
yeah.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
All right, motion to approve, Randy seconds it. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. All righty, so now we move down to Randy's Metro North Chair's report. All right, thank you.
Can you move the mic down,
We can try.
Got a little one.
The little one ain't gonna go very far.
you can slide that very carefully the way you're doing it.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Well, it's nice to be here in person and see so many smiling, friendly faces. It's a long time since we all got together. Well, I've seen, at various times, I've seen you. What's in the past years. We had a very nice tour of the Metro Community Council, a very nice tour of corporate home and shops. The managers who took us around couldn't have been nicer, and the staff accompanied us, so we learned a lot about Metro North. buildings are all brand new. I don't know how many of you have had the privilege of being at Croton Harmon in the old days when they had their open house. And they had train ride up to Cold Spring, Full Foliage, Festival. The employees loved it, as I wrote here, and everybody liked it. Unfortunately, the layout of the yard doesn't lend itself anymore. Had a good time. And, I did hand out safety flyers at Natty West for Rail Safety Week before I went there. I was at Port Jervis for the rededication of the station, which is now accessible. Walter and I and a bunch of friends had taken a trip up there in June, and we saw the way it was, how it was not operating so well for getting on and off the train. I had to go through one door onto a horrible, plank with a platform extender, whatever, metal bridge plate or something. Yeah, it was switch bridge plate. But this is so much better, and it has the same very nice overhead wood paneling as the White Plains Station has, which I attended that opening ceremony as well. And luckily, I didn't have to speak at either of those places, so that's good. And stuff is in here, the highlights. Anybody has any questions about? Of course, the big complaint on the Hudson line is the lack of express service from Tarrytown. Even non-rail fans like myself, by the service, are not happy. I did see people working at Dobbs Ferry, as what I wrote down this morning. I'm going to press Kathy about it when I see her on Monday, or maybe even this afternoon if she's going to be in. It's Tarrytown and also Ossining. Ossining, a lot of expressways don't stop at Ossining anymore. Ossining is another one day. We'll still have reduced schedules over there. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy.
Any questions for Andy? Alrighty, we'll go down to Lisa's, Executive Director's Report.
Thank you. Well, it has been quite a year. We're also delighted to be back, in person and in a hybrid situation, and I think we're going to continue to be hybrid, for the next few months, and give that option and as we see how things shake out. But it's nice to have the option. We are thrilled that Kara and Jessica have joined our small but mighty and less small and mightier team now. They've both made a really terrific splash and are really contributing tremendously, so thank you both. Bradley is not here because he's on his last family vacation ever. We will let him go away again, but he had a vacation that he's planned. As many of you know, we released Freedom Ticket 2 now more than ever in October. And we will continue to pursue commuter rail discounts with transfers to subways and buses as the report proposes. And as Andrew and Jerry said, we anticipate that the board will take some action next week on changes to or some adaptations to fare policy. We don't know what that is, but anything that would be permanent would have had to go through fair hearings, so it'll be a pilot program. So if it's not what we're proposing, I think we have, an opportunity to continue to make our voices heard over time. And to that end, on Tuesday at 1, we will be holding a rally in the Bronx at the Metro North Station at Fordham with Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. and Borough President-elect Vanessa Gleason and other Bronx elected officials. Thank you to Marisol, who is not here today because they have their tree lighting ceremony today, for helping to organize that. And we invite you to join us and stand with us as we rally for Freedom Tickets to come to the Bronx, to Metro North, and for expansion to more stations on the Long Island Railroad.
Unfortunately, it's predicted to be mild next week.
Well, we did that on purpose. We consulted the Farmer's Almanac. We did not, but,
The weather proxy too?
yeah. Yes, we have also spoken to the Queensborough President's Office. We had a nice conversation with, the new Chief of Staff for Donovan Richards, and his, deputy, counsel, who is an Atlantic ticket user, who knows the frustration of Atlantic ticket, and they're very interested in working with us to pursue Freedom Ticket expansion. And while it's unlikely that we'll be able to pull off another rally on Tuesday, and potentially, this year, as I said, we think that we'll have more time, in the coming months to do that, and we were encouraged that perhaps, the borough president would, send a letter to the MTA and, possibly testify on Wednesday, before the board, either in person or virtually, and support a Freedom Ticket and discounted commuter rail. So again, we'll send, if you're interested, Tuesday at 1 o'clock, so just let us know if you can join us, and we will, be more than happy to share that information with you. Our work with our colleagues in advocacies and our partners in the legislature and the MTA continues. It is sharply focused on, or as Andy Byford would say, laser focused on trying to identify dedicated and recurring operating revenue streams. Don't again find ourselves in the terrible situation of red ink and looming deficits in the out years, and the threat of draconian service cuts and potential unfathomable fare hikes. Cannot count on federal bailouts to save riders on a regular basis. The reality is, given the political reality, is that we may not see the legislative changes that are needed this year, and the good news is that there's funding this year. But this is the time to lay the groundwork for the next year and the coming years. In fact, we have a statewide call, later this afternoon to talk about how to further that groundwork. We launched our new website this year, and thank you for all of your help and participation in getting that going. There may be some outstanding questions that Bradley sent to you. If you have not yet responded, please do so. If you have if Kara has a camera, right? Did I see you with a camera? So if you'd like to get your headshot taken after the meeting, please see here.
Madison County, we grant of $480,000. This project is for creation.
So Kara will be able to take your headshot afterwards. So please see Kara, and we'll update that. Websites are living, breathing things, and we ask that you continue to look at it. You'll see all of our testimony that's uploaded there. Including last night, our board testimony. We do testify at every committee meeting that we can, every board meeting, every ESD hearing, Senate meetings, Assembly meetings. I will not say that we'll go to the opening of an envelope, but we do participate in getting riders' voices heard in as many forms as we can to continue getting our voices out there. So we hope that you'll continue to keep us posted on things that you think, ways that you think that we can continue to improve our website. And did we send the link for photos? I believe we did. So please drop your photos into the Google Drive if you need us. We can send a refresh of that link. The more photos we have in our library, the better. We have not given up on our 2020 annual report or our 2021 annual report. We're just a little behind, but we are looking forward to compiling that, and we'll be looking at a combined 2021 report. So stay tuned for that. We will probably ask for your input there, and again, for any photos. There'll be a lot of Zoom pictures in the 20 report, but we were quite active and will continue to be that. And we are looking ahead to 2022. We are, staff is compiling our list of potential research projects and white papers, including a green series on resiliency and the MTA's capital program. But we'd welcome your thoughts as well as we more fully develop our plans and schedule. So, let us know what you think. That's sort of an overview. I will just say one other thing. And talking about the advocacy work that we've done over the last year and that continues. Spent a lot of time working locally and nationally with our colleagues on the infrastructure package. And we had a call, staff had a call with Senator Schumer's office earlier this week. And there's a lot of potential, a lot of promise in the funding that's coming with that package. Timing is challenging because the funding streams have not all been tied up nicely, and mechanisms have not all been delineated to the point where money can start going out the door yet. So the more quickly that happens, better the chance that it will happen in the way we'd like to see it happen. But their priorities include a Penn Station rehab, Penn Access, East River tunnels, Second Avenue subway, and ensuring that state of good repair is not just achieved, but that upgrades to signals and rolling stock, including electric buses. There is, from what we understand, about to be a shortage of electric buses. So now's the time to dig in and start moving ahead with that. Fortunately, the MTA is well positioned to do so. We're going to keep on top of that, and we will post it. That is what I have to say. If anyone has any questions for me.
Well, actually, let him go first. You have your hand up first.
Oh, and WageWorks, Larry?
Yeah.
Yeah, so WageWorks, I'm sorry.
No.
We did speak certainly about that. And what we heard was that, and this is the same thing, that you may have heard last you spoke with me. I think that, Senator Schumer and Congresswoman Rice's office continue to pursue the legislation that we've been speaking to them about, is that the Congressional Research Office for finishing touches. They should have something to us later this.
Okay, and for those who don't know, on this WageWorks and the pre-tax benefit issue, there was originally a draft written that we looked at, and we didn't like the wording of the draft because the wording would have eliminated those that are not still employed by the same employer. They would not be eligible to get their money. That's the way the wording was. So we asked for the wording to be changed for those who were working and are not now employed by that same people, that they are still eligible to get their money back. Because the way the wording was, this would not be eligible. So that was one problem.
Why would they be so stupid?
You're asking about federal government, a question like that?
I know, I was looking at it.
I would say with a straight face, but you have a mask on, so I can't see.
There's no way for people who to access a refund. So if anything is better, but best is even better. You know, we think that the language that we proposed is
Yeah.
stronger, better, and will be more helpful to more people.
And the unfortunate thing is, we're past the point of people are losing money now.
Yeah, that was what
And
I was gonna bring up.
It's a huge issue that there are families that didn't realize until it was too late that they were getting all this money taken out every month. I don't know if everyone knows how this works. You get money taken out of your paycheck pre-tax every week. Now, a lot of people, when they were laid off or things of that nature during the pandemic, they never looked at their pay stub. I mean, most people just look at the number in their bank account, they say, okay, it's the same, I'm good. But they didn't realize, hey, they're still taking out this money and I'm not taking a train anymore. So now all this money's been sitting in these accounts and people don't have the ability to get their money. And it's turned on Long Island, it's turned into a black market for tickets, where you can go on a website and you can say, hey, I need a ticket, and people are willing to buy you a ticket for a weekly ticket that's normally $80. They're willing to, I'll go to the station, I'll buy it to you for $50. You give me $50 and I'll buy it for $80, because they'd rather.
They're getting the physical ticket.
No. They will go to the train station, buy the weekly ticket, they will meet you at the train station, you give them $50, they give you the ticket that they paid $80, because they'd rather get 50 back than nothing, because they're going to lose it. So they'd rather get something than nothing.
And this is probably the biggest concern, is that by the time the Fed gets through all these gyrations, they're like locking the door after the horse is gone, you know?
And the big stumbling block was,
Money will already been given back, or...
yeah, and the big stumbling block was an IRS issue. This money was taken out pre-tax, so people should be taxed on that money, and the IRS was running their feet and just dragging this out to figure out how a company like WageWorks or some of these other companies, the MTA, could actually tax people on those funds that they are holding.
Give them a 1099, it's simple, but...
The 1099 wouldn't work. The original thing that they were going to establish a new number, because...
A new number, all right.
Yeah, because it's not earned income at that time, it's past earned income, so it falls into a different category in IRS land.
It's much dangerous worse than we're dealing with.
Right.
Yeah,
It was much easier for them to figure out nothing than something.
yeah.
So now, it's an issue that, you know, has been on Jerry and the LRCC's radar for well over the 18 months. So hopefully we'll get some news next year.
If this money is taken out of people's accounts and it's in their name, and they start commuting again, they should be able to just access it.
Agreed, they can, however,
They can.
you have an 18-month, if you don't use it, you lose it in 18 months, and we're past the 18-month period when the pandemic started.
And obviously, the pandemic has largely affected that 18-month
Agreed.
artificial window, so.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's not a law, the rule is the rule
Yeah.
of that everybody signed when they signed the agreement to get the money withheld from them. And we're past that 18-month period.
So be a little flexible and do the right thing.
So Senator Schumer has said that he is gonna introduce legislation, and we're getting there.
Yeah,
It'd be nice if there was some way to recover it, because where does the money go when it's forfeited?
It goes
it goes back to the person, back to the company that holds the money. So, I'm gonna make this up. Let's say WageWorks has $40 million of people's money. I'm making this up. It's probably a lot more. We're probably talking hundreds of millions. If they don't want to give the money back, because can you imagine if they have in their accounts $5 billion of people's money, if all of a sudden the IRS and the government says, you gotta give it all back, they can go bust.
And they're privately held.
So there's a lot of these companies that don't want to get, and they're fighting on the other side, they're fighting against us, because they don't want to give the money back, because they know they're gonna get that money. That's gonna go into their coffers, because it's gonna go past the 18 months. So then the other question I have, Lisa, for you is, can the MTA put a link to the PCAC website on the main page of the site? I saw there's a lot of links on the bottom, but we're not one of them.
There are, so if you go into their website onto, transparency, we're on that page.
Right, okay, on the bottom, on the main page, if you scroll all the way down, it goes links to a gazillion other places.
Which
Can we be added to the
main page?
gazillion?
There's more websites,
MTA.info.
or new MTA.info.
There's a little thing on the upper left. If you click on that, one of the choices is transparency. Once you hit transparency, we are on that page.
Oh,
We're on the transparency.
okay.
On
We
the
can
same
get on
page as
some-
press releases.
Okay.
But I can actually find them right now on this computer.
If you know what the word PCAC is, somebody else does.
But the good thing about
That's where we have to
PCAC is
educate them.
on our new website, at least we say what it means.
Right.
On our old website, it did.
Okay, I yield, I'm done.
No. Well, no, you're not yelling, you're actually on the ball on that one. But, Lisa, there is one thing I'm gonna add into a bonus, because before Thanksgiving, I actually did attend Broadway Junction with U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer with Jessica Murphy, who's the head chair of ACTA. And I do like to, I had to thank, all of a sudden, I get a phone call from Schumer's office, then I get a email from other people saying, Schumer's gonna be there, can you make it? And I'm like, I'm already here already, where do you think I am? But he's already trying to put in $7.5 billion. Now, did you guys get that email I sent you, the information?
That's part of the, infrastructure package.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I just want to say, we also, I'm hearing that, you know, not just train stations, but I'm hearing, as you mentioned, Second Avenue, but the one thing that I mentioned to the staff there, are they gonna be working, and I think you and I forgot her name, our new member from here, Karen, and I did mention about ramps, because there are some stations you can do ramps.
So that's a conversation with Q.
No, Q knows this. Him and I have been discussing, and Sarah Berry can vouch with me. I mentioned it to the staff because they were asking this question. I said, there are we have to see where a station can do it, because it's either said in the past, not all stations you can do it because it's really severely hard. But there are some stations, yes, you can do it, but you have to be you understand that means parts of the station may have to be closed, because to do a ramp, you need to have room to work on it and make sure the bottom of this thing is stable.
Takes a lot of
Yeah.
room.
So,
But on that particular station, because the
What
A
station?
and the C level is so far from the L train level, an elevator is what is needed at Broadway Junction, there's no question about that.
yeah, and the one thing we also have
This is-
advantage, right?
Oh, go ahead,
Go
Chris,
ahead.
sorry. Yeah, so this is Sarah.
No.
So there is already,
ahead, Sarah.
hi. So we are working to look at how we can make Broadway Junction accessible. It is a complex that we did put into the 2020 to 2024 capital plan to make the entire complex accessible. Of course, we always look at ramps in the system. If it's possible and feasible to install a ramp, we would always prefer it, right? It's cheaper, ramps don't break, you have access to it. We don't need to worry about the maintenance or the like an elevator would break down. But I don't believe it was feasible at Broadway Junction, but I can verify, but I don't believe that a ramp was feasible and that elevators are needed at that entire station.
You are correct, Sarah. Actually, you're 100% correct. I mean, you're right, because even I look at them like, how can you do a ramp there? We're going to talk like the Jetsons? We can't do like the Jetsons can do, or Star Trek, beam me up. There is no way. It's really hard. An elevator, yes. No. The question is what Schumer's staff were asking. Not the Broadway Junction, but Sarah, you are correct, because some people did ask that in the past. They're asking if we are going to be adding these lists of stations, can some certain stations can be built as a ramp? As Sarah just said just a few minutes ago, they have to look at some of the station structure. She's right, because there are some stations you cannot do it because it's severely hard. If we went back in time, maybe yes, but
Well,
you do have.
To that point, Chris, there's a lot of our stations, like the stations that have elevators now. The
Yeah.
reason they have elevators is because ramps were not an option. So the ADA has
Yeah.
limitations around how many times ramps can wrap around, and how many feet they can be. So that is the reason that it is in a lot of the stations we put in elevators, because we're not able to. Ramps are usually the very first thing that they look at, our design folks look at, just because it, like I said, it's easier, it's quicker, and it's a lot cheaper, and it saves a lot of money to install ramps. But it is definitely one of the first criteria that we do look at, is if a ramp is feasible at this station. And I believe in this current capital plan, the 70, I don't believe any of the stations were decided or were feasible for ramps. But I know that in the future stations, we did do a Stantec study that is available online that states whether we can implement ramps at stations or it's only elevators. So I can forward that report to you guys as well. It is public. It is on the new.mta.info webpage and does provide that information.
Sarah, there's a question in the chat. How about ramps at Hunters Point Avenue, Long Island Railroad to Hunters Point Avenue, subway?
And
So
it's,
that's, I'm sure you don't have the answer right then. I know that accessibility is being looked at for both of those.
yes, and I will notate that and get back to you guys on, if a ramp is feasible at Hunts Point. As you know, our team some of you guys may not know, but our team is officially at headquarters now. So we do oversee Long Island Railroad Metro North, but we are just diving into the Long Island Railroad Metro North accessibility conversation. So I will definitely get back to you guys on that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, Sarah, one thing I wanted to just bring up is, as the council chair for Long Island Railroad, I deal with Long Island Railroad, but in the grand scheme of things, something like Hunters Point Avenue, we need to coordinate that between not just Long Island Railroad, but New York City Transit, because we would renovate Hunters Point Avenue, put in a ramp or put in an elevator or whatever. It's really useless unless you do the same thing at the Hunters Point number 7 station, because 95% of the riders that use Hunters Point are coming off that number 7 subway.
Correct.
So it's just, we just want to be sure that there's coordinating situations like that where you have Long Island Railroad next to MTA Transit, that both items are coordinated. Just doing one of them is just like a waste of time.
Yeah, so that's a really good point. And so that's one of our initiatives and on our team specifically is making sure that we are collaborating with both New York City Transit, Long Island Railroad, Metro North, and also the DOT in any of the work that we do to kind of have a seamless process and making sure that the projects make sense, right? Like you said, if people are transferring to the Hunters Point station, or would transfer if they could, and we've made the Hunts Point station on Long Island Railroad accessible, we should do the same thing for transit. And so that is something that we do look at, and our team definitely will have more of a say now that we are at headquarters and it falls under our jurisdiction. We definitely will take looks. We will definitely be looking at that and making sure that if we are making stations accessible on Long Island Railroad, that there are corresponding stations on the subway stations that we are making accessible as well.
Thank you.
Jerry, Michael's hand is up.
Oh, yeah, Mike, sorry.
Yeah, speaking of, Hunter's Point Station, Hunter's Point Avenue Station, they supposed to make, they're supposed to make a transfer point from the 7 to the G. Like, Court Square.
I was not aware of that.
I'm not-
No, I didn't think G was anywhere near there.
It's not so close.
No, not that.
No, it's attached to Court
You
Square.
have it at Court Square.
Yeah.
Court Square has it.
Yeah.
And it's 88, it's, the 7 is 88, but not the G yet.
No, they just put the elevator in at 21st.
Yeah.
No, they, didn't they,
At 23rd.
at
21st Van Allen.
21st Van Allen, they're putting in the elevator for the G.
Mm-hmm. But I thought, I think he was trying to think if you can meet the 7 at another station, which everybody knows you can do that at Court Square.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, Karen.
Speaking of accessibility at the railroad station, I was curious, what's the timeline for making sure all of the stations, especially in Queens, have ADA accessibility? I know around 2005, 2006, when they renovated Laurelton, Locust Manor, and Rosedale, there were promises of elevator and escalator, and when all was said and done, only an elevator was put in at Rosedale. And those stairs are aging pretty badly at all of them. And people are getting older, and there's different mobility issues, and it really needs to be looked at. I mean, I ride those stations regularly to come into meetings and so forth, and
Well, definitely taking note, and I guess Sarah is definitely one of the people to talk to about that.
thank you.
Yeah, and I did note that here. And you said it was the Rosedale station?
It's Locust Manor, Laurelton, and Rosedale, so that's either Far Rockaway or Long Beach, depending, you know, what.
Which grade, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that Senator Comrie has been focused on trying to get those made accessible as well.
Rosedale is
But we want to make sure that this time they are, because there were promises before, and the community was greatly disappointed when it didn't mature. Exactly, and it was very limited. It was placed at the far end as opposed to on Francis Lewis, where most people, you know, get on and get off and you know.
where the buses
transfer
are.
and
Which
so forth.
was it was, Locust Manor, Rosedale, and,
Laurelton, other
Laurelton.
stations.
And all 3 of them are your Atlantic ticket stops.
yep, on
Yep.
the.
Remember when we had a big Atlantic ticket, Freedom Ticket rally at, Locust Manor, and all the people from Rochdale Village turned out? They really wanted Locust Manor to be made, accessible.
Yeah.
Yes, large senior population.
Large senior population, yeah.
I remember that one.
All righty, any else, don't want to miss anybody?
Is there anybody who has, any questions?
Yeah, it's Matthew Kessler. I don't know if I can ask a question now or have to wait.
Yeah, no, you, now's the time.
Okay, just a question and a comment. The comment is Rosedale, Laurelton, Locust Manor are officially on the Far Rockaway branch, but they are served by Long Beach branch trains as well. My question is has there been any updates to the Brooklyn Scoot, such as what was known as Platform F?
Oh, you mean the Brooklyn Shuttle?
Correct.
Tracks 11 and
11, 12, yeah.
Yeah.
11 and 12 in Jamaica.
Or check 13 is what it should.
Yeah.
Right now, it's, brand spanking new and totally unused. And we haven't heard anything about when they plan to put it in service or something. We'll have to follow up with that.
When I brought that up with President Eng at a meeting and told them the importance of the through seat ride
Right, yeah.
to Brooklyn or the across the platform transfer, not having to go up and over. He understood completely, and my impression is that in the rush hour period, they will continue to be through one seat service to
Right.
Atlantic
It would
Terminal.
just be for off-peak
Off-peak.
yeah,
Yeah, additional
rush hour.
service via the, shuttle.
But I don't think that's gonna happen until after until they start adding in more trains.
They open up the Grand Central too, that's what Phil said at one of the board meetings too. To add to your question, because Phil was here today, because I bumped into him, they were discussing, when they have some Islander games, they were gonna open some, maybe one or two trains, but because what he's mentioning last time, he said there has been increasement ridership from Atlantic to Jamaica, and I could tell you that when I was doing Mass Force before the last PCAC meeting, the ridership was increasing very heavy, but in one way, I'm gonna say good in one way, because I see the Babylon train that comes in, I've seen the Rakangana train, forgive me if I say it wrong, but the bottom line is, I see the ridership. And the one thing that we're hearing about it right now, for the record, a lot of people saying they feel safer to go there than Penn Station, because again, homeless issues are still increasing. And they also don't want to get hurt, because there is also an issue with elevators at Penn Station, which, that needs to be brought in again. It's a good ridership, especially we have Nostra now ADA accessible.
All right, Lisa, I just wanted to bring up one thing. I don't know whether this is, white paper or whatever, or just something. I think we need to try and figure out some way to educate the public about MTA finances. What I'm hearing a lot right now, and I even have a senator meeting, a state senator meeting from this. They were all like, well, why do you need this whole thing? Pricing, all this money from Washington. Right. You know, and I mean, you have legislators who don't understand why we need it. So I think we need to try and come up with something to educate the public that, yeah, it's needed, and I've explained to people, we're okay for the next year or two, but, you know, 24, 25 is gonna drop off a cliff, you know, and people don't seem to understand that. And, you know, we need to keep things going forward. And I think part of that, so to speak, is get out there how the MTA spends some of this money. Because I have this impression like the MTA is like a private corporation, and the more money we take in, it's like the more profit we're getting. Yeah. There's no profit here. You know, it's not like we're money grabbing for what? You know, if we're trying to get money in, going out, and particularly in capital projects, because that's keeping a lot of people in the construction industry busy. Who would be sitting home if, you know, they didn't have something. So I think that's an education we have to get out to the public. It just hit home, because I got a flyer from my state senator, and she's like, she wants to have a rally, you know, about, you know, pricing, MTA has all this money, what do they, you know, yeah, exactly.
Can we meet with her?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
That's a real issue and a real problem, and it's something we've raised with MTA leadership, particularly after the hearings that we attend, when the comments are, well, we don't need congestion pricing money right now.
Well,
it's true, but there's ways to say it.
Right.
So, you know, we staff, but we in the advocacy said, can you just say it differently? Because words have a way of meaning exactly what you say, even though they don't mean exactly what you mean.
Yeah, it's
Well,
being
if
a
you look
little
at the
proactive.
budget, when we go through the budget, it's never, projected to come in. It's not included in any of those budgets, and we need it.
Yeah, so it's, I think, absolutely something that, one of the things that Karen and I were talking about with some of our colleagues was, speaking with other cities that are looking to do, and looking at, what kind of opposition they're facing, looking at different voices, that are being, heard. They've had 17 hearings, I think, so far, 19. And thousands and thousands of comments. The MTA is beginning to incorporate some new information that's, and I think that we could do better with information sharing.
Yeah.
And that's something that we can certainly out there, and we'll do that.
And not to get off on a tangent, but wording problem at the MTA. I know I've gotten a few complaints from railroad riders. You get the notices, why their tickets don't activate, and it sounds very threatening, like, you failed to activate your ticket before you got on the train,
Yeah.
we're gonna cut you off. And it's
Yeah.
like, and I saw something that says, that's very threatening. That's not the way you really should be talking to customers, it's like, you can say the same thing.
It feels insulting even to,
Yeah, well, there you go, that's it, a lot of people is like.
At least it didn't say a hitman has been
Yeah.
dispatched.
Yeah.
That's the second offense.
Because that's very sexist.
Yeah,
Right.
hit person.
it really feels inappropriate because, if a disabled customer sees that, they can have trouble trying to put it on, because
Yeah.
that's insulting them, Customers who pay their fares, give a little courtesy a little bit.
We've mentioned that to the railroad, that, they should,
And, Jerry, just add this quick, I definitely agree with you with the education, because before Lisa, you came in, I did mention this to Bill Henderson in the past. Judy can vouch with me, because we both said that, because we want to educate everywhere, from Metro North Long Island Railroad, because, since you came on, Lisa, people are seeing who you are, they're seeing who PCAC is, but we need to bring it up to the next level next year.
Okay.
I have no problem doing it, because I do it, but I think it's a team effort.
Right.
hey, it's 1:01, and it looks like our guest speakers have arrived.
In person.
I'm not putting them on the spot. Shall we move up there?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
And we also need you to sign into the Zoom so that you can share your screen. That's absolutely a conversation that we have.
While they're setting up, their presentation should take, I guess, about a half an hour or so. I'm sure there'll be questions and whatever. I really don't know how much we have in the old business, new business, hopefully not too much, but we just want to say we have a hard stop at 2 o'clock today. Before 2 o'clock. We have a hard stop probably about 10 minutes to 2, because myself, Randy, and Andrew have to go in for a briefing. Alrighty, so we're prepared for next week's meetings.
Sure.
Alrighty, so that being said, we'll turn this over to our guest.
Yeah, I
Thank you for letting me know my hearing is working today now.
All right.
What?
When you can take your, mask off, so we did not, we didn't ask for your bios and stuff, so.
Okay, we'll do a
Oh,
quick
yeah.
introduction. I believe that everything's set to say.
We'll let you gentlemen.
I'm really enjoying this.
You should be able to share. And then we, your new, that should.
You mean you didn't hear me? Okay.
Lunch meeting.
We'll let you invade the personal space.
And then you can
That could-
minimize,
The public hearing is.
I can minimize my stuff
yeah.
on a daily basis.
Hey, Lee.
It's something that we struggle with regularly.
Yeah.
Lisa, do we want to pull that microphone towards him more, or go the other way?
There, down, go to the, all the way, no, down there, down, all the way to the left, see that, right, no, down, yep, right there. And you can move that. There you go. And then let's move this one.
It's a little humbling. At one point in my career, I was the young guy who knew how to use a computer, and now I'm.
I am not the young guy.
It's, life comes at you very fast. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us. Sorry for the slight delay. I'm Joe Chan. I'm MTA Creative Director. I'm joined by my colleague, Steve Flan. He's Manager of Mapping and Wayfinding here. We're both at MTA headquarters as part of the newly transformed and consolidated MTA Creative Services. So this is my second time speaking to the PCAC, I believe, and we're really thrilled to be here today to update you on our CIC map pilot. Some of you may know about it already through your own travels or experiences. We want to update you on where we're at. I know we only have half an hour today, so we'll kind of go through the presentation rather quickly to introduce you to what we're doing, how we're doing it, and what's next, and then open it up for questions, if that works for everyone. That's pretty much good, and I think we have our card out at like 1:30ish or something. Okay. Okay. Great, so we'll get started. So we are calling this the CIC pilot, CIC map pilot. The CIC, as some of you may know, is the Subway Customer Information Center, which you will see in all of our stations. When space permits, the CIC typically includes a subway map, a neighborhood map, a borough bus map, and a planned work directory, which we no longer do, but it also has spaces for sort of ancillary messages. The CIC, I don't know exactly how long it's been around. I believe it's at least 2 decades old. I think some of the folks here at the table may know. It predates our very robust digital screen rollout, which I know you're all familiar with. We embarked upon this project last year in an attempt to answer questions about what is the role for a print map, what is the role for a CIC in the age of digital. The plan for what would accompany the screen was not fully filled out. So this is what we're trying to attempt here. What's the best complement to the digital screens that you see in all the stations? Digital is great for some things, but print, even in 2021, going into 2022, still has a very strong place. So we're actually fans of print, even though my background is mostly digital. There's lots of things that we can be doing to take advantage of the strengths of each medium to bring the best things to our customers. So the CIC map pilot launched last year in August at the Bay Ridge 86th Street station. It was in conjunction with a partial station rehab there that made the station fully accessible. The station, however, when it reopened to the public with the new elevators, did not yet have the digital screens there. We used that as an opportunity to launch this pilot to bring in some pilot maps to try out there, because the station rehab also didn't specify use of the legacy maps as well. So we had an interesting opportunity there to sort of put some stuff together. Since that time, in the ensuing 15, 16 months, we've expanded the pilot to 10 stations in all 5 boroughs. At some stations, the pilot maps are the only ones you see. At some stations, they are in addition to the legacy set of maps. In this map pilot, our goals are to take a fresh look. What's the role of print in the age of digital? And to look at it very holistically, not in terms of just maps, but how is this fitting in with the other things we have coming up in the coming months to greatly improve, I'd like to say, MTA's visual communications products, whether it's wayfinding signage, whether it's these map sets, whether it's a decal on a bus or a subway, what can we do to improve focus for the customer, to decrease the visual clutter that has built up over the years, and just how do we make a system that's going to be friendlier and easier to use for everyone, whether they're diehard New Yorkers who've been here for decades or they are tourists who've never set foot in New York. So those are our goals. We also want to incorporate industry best practices into these maps. You know, what's the best practice in ADA standards and, you know, not just compliance, but, you know, the best that's out there. And also what are the trends in urban and transit wayfinding? You know, we often, you know, I want New York to lead. In short, you know, I want New York to lead. A lot of fantastic things have been happening overseas in Europe and Asia in their transit systems, in their urban wayfinding systems. And London. And London, yeah, London. Yeah, I guess it was part of Europe at some point, but, you know, it was, you know, overseas. But I think New York has a chance to lead again, and that's what we're doing here. We're trying to, top to bottom, look at everything. At all these CAC pilot locations, there is a small QR code that anyone, any customer can scan their phone at and fill out an online app survey. They can also see all these maps on a website we have that describes the pilot, and we've received hundreds of feedback, hundreds of customers' feedback over the past 15, 16 months. It's been overwhelmingly positive for what we've been doing. And it's given us some good directions on where to explore next and how to iterate these next. So I'm calling the core set of pilot maps that we've been working on. I like to, for Beatles fans there, we call it the Fab Four. It's the subway diagram, it's the geographic map, it's the local area bus map, and it's the neighborhood map. Two of these maps will be familiar to you. The neighborhood map is just a very slight alteration, modification to the neighborhood map that is standard right now. It's actually derived from the Walk NYC map, which New York City DOT has had, you know, on streets for quite a while. The local bus map is a little bit different than the bus map you typically see in stations, in that we wanted to make it more useful. Typically right now, the CICs have a borough bus map, but we wanted to increase the focus for folks in that station to show them a map of bus routes within a sort of a 20-minute bus journey. We think that's going to be more useful. The stars of the show, obviously the subway diagram, also known as the vignette to some folks, is a reintroduction, a reimagining of the subway diagram that we had here in the 70s. This one is based on the maps that House of Fuentes created for us for the Second Avenue subway commemorative map. So it's actually, it looks superficially like the Vignelli map, but it actually is a new product, and it's been updated and it's been continuously sort of improved in this pilot process so far. The map that I think pairs extremely well with this, and I'm actually very excited about, is the geographic map. I am going to actually go into the next slide so you can see it a little better. Here's the subway diagram. This represents our lines differently than the existing Hertz map does. The Vignelli map is closer to world standards in terms of how metro systems are represented. Those of you who are familiar with our current map, also known as the Hertz map, know that it is actually pseudo-geographical. It looks like it represents a geographically accurate land map, but it does not. It actually
It's indeed a diagram.
Yeah.
Disguised.
Yeah, it's a diagram disguised as a diagram. Right, exactly. Disguised, that's a very good way to say it. You know, the other notable things, other than the more diagrammatic nature, are that each subway line has its own line, whereas in the Hertz map right now, trunk lines are combined. So the Lexington Avenue line on the Hertz map is represented as one line instead of three, the 4 or 5. It's different here. This makes it easier to actually trace your journey from.
Trouble now.
Huh?
Trouble now.
So that's the subway diagram. The one that I'm actually quite excited about, that was
Not geographically accurate.
No, but there are ways that we can address certain
That's right.
anomalies.
Plus, I would just add, today's map, if you look at it, under every station, it tells you the trains that stop there. That one did not. You have to follow the trunk line.
Oh, we could show you the entire historical progression of these maps, and we'd be happy to do that. It's going to good places.
what we've learned since embarking upon this is that no one is neutral about maps. everyone has an opinion, and a rather strong opinion, which we love, actually, because that means this is important to people, and we work on things that are important. So the subway diagram, you know, quote unquote, the Vignelli gets all of the attention, but I actually am very excited that we want to pair it with the geographic map. So this is a map that has never been seen before in New York City, never been seen before in our stations. What this is actually is actual geographic representation, and it pairs with the subway diagram because both have their own uses, and both together I think are a very powerful way to teach people how the system works. So
Does this have, does this have an overlay of, commuter rail?
it does, it does. And what's even better, not only does it show, so if you just want to know from station to station, right, the subway diagram is great for that, you know? It's obviously distorts geography, you know? Central Park doesn't look like that, Manhattan doesn't look like that, but neither does anything else. But it optimizes for station to station travel.
It's a very quick read. If you're in a hurry and you look at this, you'll know exactly where to transfer.
Yeah.
How to
You
get
would think that the M line, all the way from Metropolitan Avenue to Broadway in Brooklyn, is a straight line, which of course it is far from.
Of course, exactly,
You don't
exactly.
know that, Andrew.
Yeah. When it pairs with this geographic map, I think it gives the customer a very powerful way to understand their journey. This will really give you an idea of how long it's going to take from Prospect Park on the Q to, you know, 57th Street. You will see actual relative distances. I don't think I'm the only one who has gotten lost using the Hertz map in earlier days because I thought it was geographically accurate. So I thought Grand Street and Canal Street were not that far apart, and as a result, I was 2 hours late for whatever I was going to.
3 years ago, I misread the number of blocks because it didn't have every street on the Hertz map, and I thought, I've been doing this for years, and I still got burned by it.
What excites me about this, though, in addition to being a really nice pairing to the subway diagram, is that this lets us show SBS routes as something that is more than a local bus route and, you know, maybe is equivalent in some ways, and certainly in our aspirations is equivalent to a subway route. So it shows SBS. I know it's a little hard for you to see it here. Yeah.
Since everybody seems to be, since I was going to wait until the end, this is Trudy Mason, and the person who asked Dr. Bronzapt, who worked with Mike Hertz on getting rid of the Vignelli map. And I would like to just know if something didn't work and there was almost uniform, you may not know this, objection to the Vignelli map. Why are you now reviving it when, and Arlene, you may want to join in, because it just doesn't seem to make sense if something didn't work or wasn't accepted.
I'd
Why
like to address
it is
that.
being revived?
Trudy, I'd like to address that in the Q&A, if I may, if you guys just...
Well, I was going to wait until the end, but everybody seems to be interjecting, so that's why I joined in now.
I'd like to answer them all at the end. I think that is a very valid point. It has been brought up many times before, and I think we should have a discussion about it. You know, this is a very transparent process. We're not hiding anything. The local area bus map, it's a better bus map. It shows the buses that you might actually take from your station. You'll notice that, okay.
Well, actually, one thing I would like just to point out at this point is the geography, the bus map, is identical to the geography of the Walk New York City maps. It is indeed the same file.
Thanks, Steve. The other parts of this that we are developing right now are station maps for complexes. So there have been some experimentation with this in the past.
Hello, I'm sorry, excuse me, I got disconnected. I don't know why, but I wasn't hanging up or anything. And as long as we can discuss this at the end and have a meaningful discussion about the Vignelli, and Dr. Bronzapt, I would ask you to join in, or maybe even give some information to our speakers about what happened in the past. You know, those who do not learn from the past are condemned to repeat it, which it seems we're doing now.
Thank you, Trudy. I will speak to it since I've published papers on this. And I will ask the speaker to show me his articles and publications as well.
Okay. Here's another thing we've been working on, that these are isometric style station maps, for the particularly, complex stations. I don't feel like we're quite there yet. We would love your, feedback on this. We had this posted at one of the stations. I don't think it's currently up there just because it's not exactly where I want to be, but I think there is some value to this if we get it right. Here, the problem is how much information is too much and how much information is too little. It's trying to find the right focus here. So, but we think if we can crack this, it's going to be super useful for our customers. So, we welcome your input on that. The other thing, the least interesting probably part, is the regulatory information. Oh, yeah, sure.
Thank you.
This is probably the least exciting part of it, but can really help with our station cleanup. Right now, this kind of information, this regulatory information right now in a typical station control area is done on multiple signs in different places. We'd like to just sort of collect them all and put them in one place. So if you are interested in this kind of information, some of this information we legally have to have in every station, visible 24 hours, you'll see it, and you'll see it in multiple languages. So we are experimenting with everything from the more fun, exciting, very visible maps to the other kind of business that we still are in charge of doing.
It's also an effort to consolidate the clutter.
Yeah.
in the stations.
We really want folks who come into our stations to know exactly what they should be looking at. We want to guide the eye. That is our job. We want to reduce anxiety. We don't want them to feel uncertain when they come into the system. What should they look at? What should they pay attention to? You know, we want it to be seamless. In a way, the subway obviously is in and of New York, but we have a special duty because of this system that we operate and because it's a contained part of New York, that it cannot have the visual cacophony of New York City that is so exciting to live here, but is not so great when you're running a transit system. We need to work harder on curating the information, guiding the eye of the customer. To that end, we are also piloting some station booth signs. You may have seen this in some stations. This is part of just trying our effort that's really just launched a week or two ago, to consolidate all the signs you see just in our station booth windows. You might see a typical station booth window glass will have 10 decals, all saying different things. What should a customer look at? You know, what's the most important thing? This is an attempt to try to demystify how one pays, how they can receive travel information or other assistance, how they can download an app, different ways they can, use our system. So this is version 1. We think it's solid. It's not the end-all and be-all. We invite your feedback to make it better. But I show this because this puts into context that the maps that we were doing are just one part and just kind of the beginning of a really comprehensive look at all of our visual communications products to improve the customer experience. And with that, let's say thank you. We are printing these in-house. That's Patrick from our transit print house. Yeah, it's an amazing facility for those of you who've been there. And this is literally just 2 days ago when he was printing out.
For the question and answer session, are you able to blow up any of those maps that you showed previously?
I will try, yeah.
Okay, because I think people might want to refer to something right on the screen.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, do we want to, Bertie? You want to? Bertie?
Arlene?
All right, well,
Hello? I would like to defer to Dr. Bronzak, who is the maven on all of this and worked on the maps, rather than my saying anything for my day, because I think she has it, she can express it better than I can.
Thank you. Do you hear me? Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, first of all, let me thank you for the presentation and saying you wish to design a map that is usable, which is a key word, and that people can relate to the city as well as the subway as they traverse from one place to the other. You use the Vignelli map. The Vignelli map only was in existence from 72 to 79. And the Hertz-Taranac map, when I served on the committee in the design of that map, is the one that's been around for the past 40 years. I was at the presentation when the Vignelli map was released by Dr. Ronan in 1972. And I made my comments on that, which you can read because they were picked up by the media. But even though I questioned some of the elements of the map in terms of usability, and even the print was so small, I didn't think people could see it. Dr. Ronan said, the map will be as easy to use as the yellow brick road, to which I responded, we live in New York City, not Oz. And so what Dr. Dobrow and a student at City University and I did was then we took the Vignelli map and we tried to see if people could use it. We used real people new to the city, and they were to take designated trips, and we analyzed the data. I am data oriented, and we did publish the paper. I hope you're familiar with that publication, because that publication really gave some greater impetus to redoing the map. And the committee was formed by Fred Wilkinson, in which I was asked to serve, as was Dr. Dobrow, and we were able to design the new map. The interesting thing about the design is that as we designed the map, we tested the map. We went to classrooms on the island and at Dewey High School in Brooklyn and tried to get students to take trips using the map to see how well the map worked. And even when the map was further along in design, we had the map displayed and invited riders to come and see the map and comment to us. And we incorporated their comments as we further developed the map. This was published. This is a published paper. I don't know if you've read it, but it talked about how the map was designed. Have you read the papers I'm alluding to? Yes?
What's your question for these gentlemen?
All right, so all I am saying is I know it's 2021. We also have tech now, and it's time to update and improve the existing map, but it wasn't the Vignelli map. It's the Hertz-Taranak map that we're talking about. And I'm curious as to whether, as Trudy Mason said, you've read the publications that speak to the design of maps, because you should have a knowledge of the history. And secondly, I'm assuming you've done some research on your own in terms of suggesting this design, these designs, and I'd like to know references to those academic articles that have been published and commented on, and just offer my assistance as you move forward, because I am a transit rider. I think that's the key thing. And I've been involved with subway maps. A book came out just recently on the debate between Vignelli and Taranak. Are you familiar with that? Because yesterday they had a webinar on it. So I'm offering my assistance, my knowledge, and reference to articles that have been published and peer reviewed as to how maps should be designed for the subway. Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Mason.
Yes, we have that, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got, I asked Mr. Chan to put a big version on the screen, and the proposed, would this replace the current map, or would this be in addition to the current map?
This would replace the current map.
This is not the map we designed.
When I spoke to Sarah Myers, she said we're not replacing the existing map. This would just be to highlight when GOs are taking place, because it's easier to highlight them when you have every line on a trunk line shown.
You might have been talking about two different things. We definitely use this for GOs, and we are, we will be using it even more for GOs and explaining service. But the idea is that if this were, if this map were to be finalized, that, yeah, this could become the map.
Of the public were to look at this map, and let's assume that first that they're not a New Yorker, okay? And they look at up here. They see 1, 2, 3. Are they gonna immediately know that only one is at those stations when they see the whole red thing there?
And you're standing in front of the camera. And you have to, it would be helpful if you explained what you were talking about, Aurora virtue, and also for our reports.
I think this is on everybody's screen now, if you're looking.
But they.
I was pointing to the 1, 2, 3 lines, between Columbus Circle and 96th Street and Broadway, which obviously are it's one trunk line, but 3 different lines. The stations, the local stations are only on the number 1 line, and I'm wondering if somebody from out of town, or even somebody who's an occasional rider, just glancing at that map would know. Or they just see the red line and see red and think, my train will stop there. On the current map, under every station, it lists the trains that stop at that station.
It is, we would have to do some testing with market research, but I would think that people would think or understand that the black dot represents a stop, and this is in effect a dot matrix. So, if you were looking at a chart as a dot matrix, and you were buying a new car and you were looking at a list of features and there was no dot there, it would mean that feature is not available. So, much in the same way, this would work that way, maybe we could have an explanation for the people that.
Yeah.
Can you blow it up again to the, like, 100 and, to the line we're talking about?
Sure.
Because what would be the problem, there you go, like at 86th Street, why can't you, I see a dot on the 1, why can't you just have a little 1 under the dot? At 79th Street, a little 1 under the dot. On 72nd Street, a 1, a 2, and a 3 under the dot. Why do we have to eliminate that?
Excuse me. If I may, since I started this discussion, this is Trudy, if I may, can I just ask one simple question without going into the particulars of the station, which is, since the Vignelli map was after, as Dr. Bronzeff said, and I think Andrew said also, was just determined to not be good. I'm trying to put it in polite language. Why, after all this time, are you reviving it when you're trying to get a new map or take the map that we currently use and make it better? Why bring back the Vignelli map in any way, form, shape, or anything?
Oh, I mean, with all due respect, obviously this is what I was alluding to. People have very strong opinions about maps. This is trying to bring us to the 21st century in recognition of let's be very clear, the best map of New York City subway system is an app. It is not the map. We have an incredibly complex system that runs 24 hours a day, where the weekend service is substantially different from the weekday service. That computation that you need to do should be done by the computer that's in your pocket. The debate about which map with all due.
Can you go back one, please, where you just were?
Sure.
What you just said,
this
could be a real improvement.
Yep.
And I suggested this to Sarah and others. The B, the W, and the Z are the trains that do not run on weekends. Why can't you show a dotted line or a different symbol for the W? Right now, if you look at that map at Astoria, you'd think the N and the W were the same, that both run all the time. This map does not tell you that is not the case, unless you were to go, I guess, to the key and look up each line.
So let's think about it. Completely agree. We will definitely try it. Mm-hmm. The printed map, the Hertz map, never represented every single possibility either. Right. Remember, we're asking a piece of paper that doesn't change to do a lot of work here, right? So this, and that's why I'm trying to, with all due respect to the debates, that have happened in the past, I'm not sure that they're completely relevant to what we're talking about here in the future.
Oh, yes.
When we are talking about when we are talking about an age where people have literally more computing power in their pocket than we travel to the moon with, when we are talking about these maps literally living right next to digital screens that are everywhere now, that show real-time information, that can show exactly where that next train coming is going to go. This is meant to be a complement to that, and it's not, so I don't think, very candidly. Yeah, 20 years ago, 50 years ago. Yeah, 50 years ago, you had to choose. You only got one poster map.
Live map on an electronic screen in stations?
Possibly one day. It is very resource intensive. If you've used that live map before, it heats up your phone because your phone is cranking through a lot of processing power. And think about it, that's processing power that you had to do in your brain that we at least now have computers to do to figure out the subway system. So paper is meant to be a complement to
Can you
digital.
blow up the subway map for one reason? Because there is something you did actually do, and Sarah Bates can vouch with me also. When you guys had the 1, 2, and 3 completely suspended, and Rachel Cohen can vouch with me as well as Systemwide Accessibility, you guys did help people with the accessibility. I'm talking about today only. Let's talk about today. Not everyone has computers. That I all understand. But right now, you guys are also working on accessible reroutes. Because I should know, because I'm the one who advocated for it. Because even Edith took, and I said, when the 1, 2, and 3 is out, people got to know there are other accessible stations and other ways of getting across to the other side of Manhattan. So you have been using it. You have put it on subway maps, because I will vouch with it on the Q train when you guys had shut on the Brighton line, which I thank you because it helped the customers who does speak a different language. And please understand, I'm just, trying to bring, because the language barrier on the Q line, we have the Russian, the Asian, all kinds of different languages. They need to know how to get, say, from where I am here, maybe to Kings Highway, which if, say, Kings Highway was shut, there has to be another accessible route for them to get around. It's not easy. But at the same time, a lot of people need to see enlargements, because Edith Prentice has said this in the past. 90% of accessibility people need to see a map that they can see and try to understand. It goes with disability and seniors. I'm going fast as I can.
Thank you for that, Chris. This is Sarah from Systemwide Accessibility. I will say that, Joe Chang is an expert in this field. He knows all of his stuff. We work with him very, very closely. He always reaches out to us for feedback, and we always reach out to the communities. And we have seen these maps, and we did work with his team on these maps. And it, from an accessibility perspective, it works. It gives you the information that you need right away, without overwhelming our customers, right? Because if you have different keys with different lines, and it can get very, very confusing. So I will just say that, from an accessibility standpoint, it works, but of course things can always be made better. But yes, to that point.
May I speak? I've raised my hand.
We need to wrap this up. So we got 2 more questions in the room, and that's probably going to conclude it, so we can finish up on time. Sharon, you had a question?
Just looking at that, instead of dots, couldn't you put the number on the line so that you knew where the one sat?
That actually has that on the geographic map, and we've been experimenting with ways to list that, and perhaps the numbers could come off the line and be listed with the actual station name, come off the lines themselves. So for instance, you would say, at particular stations, the BDFM, dots will support that. Perhaps that's a better way.
Sure.
Oh, right. It has a different way of showing.
I encourage you to check out one of our pilot stations and see these in person. This low-res screen does not do these maps justice. I am biased. I think they are quite beautiful. I think they are quite vivid. The closest station we have them at, I think, is Fulton Street, right? Yeah. The closest one, Fulton Street? Yeah, and we have a fresh set coming in. We're during this pilot phase, we're doing a monthly refresh, so you can go see what's up there right now, but I think we're going to have a refresh up there within a week or so. This doesn't do it justice. These are highly information-dense pieces of product, I guess, and to see it like this doesn't do it justice. I do encourage you to see it in person.
May I make a comment, please? There are other factors. I agree, we can use the cell phone to go from one station to another. But one of the things we used the map for when we were designing it is to let people know about neighborhoods.
Okay, Randy?
Hi.
Hey.
Very interesting presentation, thank you. I have a couple of points. Andrew's point about the storyline, the possibility that you put lines through the N and the W up there, and then where they do begin to run all the time, you show them with the proper.
Well, that is a very good suggestion. We're already, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Number 2, Paris Metro, I remember having been there many years ago, they had, to push a button, you could see where you wanted to go and say how to do it. Didn't we have something like that here in New York also?
There was a test pilot.
I thought so. And the final thing I want to say is that I collect copies of old maps. I have New York subway maps going back to the 19th. So I would like.
We'd love to see your collection.
Fairly complete.
You're our people. Yeah, because a lot of these things that we're discussing were addressed in some of the very old maps, and we do go back and look. The other thing I wanted to mention quickly was, we already do have, the dash lines, which are representing part-time routes.
Yeah.
We could find another way to expand that. We were talking, to OP about that, and we were also talking to ADA, like Sarah and Rachel, just if people can actually see those dashes, and we were experimenting with the width of those. So we really get down into, the nitty-gritty of this.
But yeah, been noted, we'll.
I can get you a free ride to my house next week. The Transit Museum is coming to my house to borrow some of my collections.
Oh, yeah, I heard
we'll get
about
it from
that.
For a,
You guys talk.
Yeah, we'll get it from them.
they're doing next spring, and so they drive to get to me, so, we can talk offline and you can work out with them and walk in.
Perfect.
Arrange
Thank you.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You won't even charge a ticket fee.
You can't really see the transfer between major lines. I think one little thing connecting the BDS and the other 34th Street.
Yeah, we kind of have to wrap this up. Do we have?
Not clear.
Contact info?
We do.
Yes, and we encourage you to to see the maps in person, to fill out the survey, tell us what you think, tell us as loud as you would like, and, tell us repeatedly. These maps are evolving. Literally, we are refreshing them every month based on continuous feedback that we receive. I do want to just frame it to everyone. Again, these are a suite of maps, ideally in the stations where we have room for all of them. They're meant to be a complement to digital. They're meant to do give new life to print. And so I think we are in the age where we can kind of have it all in a way, because we have we have additional tools in our tool set. We are not stuck with what we were 40 years ago, where it was just a 4x6 poster. I will say also that maps, the nature of maps, it's as much storytelling as it is problem solving. And that's why we're all very passionate about it.
Jerry, can I make a suggestion? Is it possible that maybe they can send you guys a PDF and you could put it out and then we can make comments back to the?
Well, that's true.
You can see those online.
We can see them online, and it just reminded me that we do have to make an update online.
Right, I'm just saying, if you can send it to Lisa, and then Lisa can send it out to the group, and then we can all comment back to you.
We'd be happy to do that, and we will definitely do that, but please also fill out the official survey online. That helps us a lot.
One-
That helps
Maybe
a lot.
send us a link to the official survey, we'll share that.
Or that.
Yeah, okay.
That would be ideal,
And one
I can
final
put it out.
thought, there's not one map that's like the magic map for everyone. And this is what London does. Different people like different maps for different information, and that's what London has. They will blanket you with maps. Okay.
Got it.
Alrighty,
Thank you.
John, thank you so much.
Thank you so much very much for having us. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, very.
Thank you. Thank you.
Alrighty, so, including that, we just have about 10 more minutes before we have to wrap up. Was there any old business that anybody wanted to bring up?
I really have new business, but I'll wait.
So, what was new business now?
I know. I just
No old business? Okay. That being said, we'll go off old business. And Chris, you have any new business?
Yes, I do have new business because it relates to all three divisions. And Jerry and Randy, if you get a chance, can you check, in stations, if you're seeing signages that's saying mask required? Because I'm seeing lately there's lack of signages saying that customers must wear a mask on the train and on the bus, because on the subway buses right now, I see Subway starting to get the signs, but not enough on the city buses. And I already mentioned this at the TRC, but there are some people saying they don't only see it mentioned off in Long Island Railroad, which, to be honest with you, I do see on the Long Island Railroad, and I do see it, but unless you see something different, I don't see it, because some people think that people are ripping the signs down or doing something. I don't know anymore, because we do need to make sure people are wearing masks. That's number one. And two, since Mask Wars is coming up next Friday, the 17th, right after TRC, we do need everyone to really try to help out to give out the mask to a lot of people.
On Long Island Railroad, I do see it, I do hear it, there is no enforcement, and I honestly can't blame the conductors or the collectors for not enforcing it.
And it's not their responsibility.
And it's not their responsibility, it's a union thing, and, from what I've seen in the papers and from what I've heard, there's been a lot of fights that have broken out for somebody.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when I rode on the train this morning, there were 1 or 2 people sitting there without a mask. Did I go over there and tell them to wear one?
No.
No. I don't wanna get in a fight.
That's why we're
Sometimes the conductors on the railroad put that out there.
I've heard of, making, I got our train usually that becomes an express, so if they made the announcement, well, you were on the train before me. Did they make an announcement about the mask?
Jerry, sorry, Randy.
They're making the announcement.
They make the announcement, but if you're not wearing it, even when you hear the announcement, you're not gonna wear it.
Let's go with the
Spot check, couple of times, everyone was wearing a mask.
One the other night, guy across from me, the conductor, this is on a Metro North train, and he says, you don't have a mask on, you have to wear a mask on this train. And the guy rumbled and reached out of his pocket, put a mask on. That was the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, the unfortunate thing is that this is gonna get worse.
But just to make everyone laugh, when I wear this button, because right now it's my other one, everyone sees me with this button, everyone I see putting on a mask or put it all the way up to their eyeball. So I'm like, maybe we should all be wearing buttons next, the way it's going, because it's scaring the people. But there is a safety concern. Randy, this is also in your end as well. They're a lot more dangerous at 125th Street, because you're seeing a lot of them running in and out the train stations and running up Metro North without wearing a mask or starting fighting with other people. You gotta really work on the police. Yeah, no, I just wanna give you a heads up, quick.
All right, well, that was that one piece of new business. Any other new business anyone else needs to bring up?
I have some new business.
Okay.
Jessica is gonna take care of this. Finally, we have some certificates, since we are in person, and we have some for some people who are not here today. We have a certificate for Francis Corcoran, who's not here today, commemorating your 20 years. Thank you, Francis. We have a certificate for Jerry Bringman, commemorating 20 years. Thank you, Jerry.
How old he is? 20 years? Wow.
Yeah.
Flies.
We have a certificate for Brian, who is not with us today, but for 10 years. Thank you. We have a certificate for Trudy Mason for 20 years. Thank you, Trudy. We have a certificate for Christopher D. Grice for 10 years.
And I'm here in person.
Yes. We have a certificate for
I'll take a picture.
Richard Catagio for 35 years. He is not with us
He's the
today.
senior member
He
here.
is the senior member.
Co-senior member.
Nope, senior member.
Oh, I thought Andrew.
No, we missed a year, so we're just in here. And we have a certificate for Mr. Andrew Albert, who is 35 years,
Oh, my God.
for a certificate of appreciation. So thank you very much, all of you.
Did we get an autograph for Andrew
Oh, I
Albert?
have to sign them.
Jerry or you, somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody's gotta sign it, make it official.
It's a written
these are not
invisible line.
That's right, you're not official, give it back.
Right. I'm writing in pencil, so.
Yeah,
Oh, that's no good.
yeah, wait a minute. Yeah, Dan, you know the rules. You gotta sign it. I need your autograph here. I'm looking, I'm like, wait a minute, you're...
Yeah, the chair.
Jerry should sign Lisa's thing, that'll make it really official.
Right.
Oh, wait, now Lisa has to sign Jerry's, because he can't sign his own.
Right, I'll sign it.
Yeah, that's right, Jerry, you can't sign your own.
No,
That's why I can't notarize my own stuff.
Yeah.
Well, that means we can get, does that mean we get on the Long Island Railroad from now?
Okay.
Nice catch.
Great. Make me feel important.
But the ink dry.
Yeah, but this time it's real, so I can say it's real ink.
March,
Yeah, our next meeting is March,
There's a list.
we sent out a list of meetings for 2022. We have hard copies here as well.
Because I gotta put on my...
Oh, you just want to.
Our next Transit Riders Council meeting is next Thursday.
Yeah.
And we will have somebody from station.
Ooh.
From where?
Station.
That's it.
And,
Happy holidays.
all right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, Sharon seconds it, all in favor?
Aye.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Mr. Brady.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah, happy holidays.